This morning, we're excited to bring you How About Dad, a workshop on father engagement basics. We have the pleasure of hearing from the award-winning Roger De Leon, who is also the co-chair of the Child Welfare Council Community Supporting Task Force. I'm going to ask Roger to introduce himself to you, since I think you're going to find his story very compelling. Roger, we are so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Dana. It is a pleasure to be here with you all. Yes, my name is Roger De Leon. And as you can see here on the slide, I did tend to put some things in there, right? I'm not trying to blow it all up about myself or anything like that. Just a couple things that I like to highlight about the things that I've been privileged to be a part of. I am a minister, I am a trainer, and I'm a consultant. I am an independent contractor at this point. I just resigned from the county of Riverside, actually in the beginning of May, to go full-time training and consulting and all of these wonderful things, and it's a pleasure to be here. I do have lived experience. I was a parent partner. I'm a father who's navigated the child welfare system, family law, as well as child support. And I was privileged to be one of the first ones to be hired on to the County of Riverside Children's Services to create the parent partner program from the ground up. I am a co-founder and steering committee member of our Dads Assisting Dads Coalition within Riverside County. And so I continue to work. I did not leave the role of a parent partner and father advocate. I just simply left the job site, right? So these are some of the things that I've been able to do within the last 8 years. I actually resigned on my 8th year anniversary, and that is the same anniversary for the parent partner program that is continuing to serve parents and child welfare within Riverside County. And so, as you can see there, I'm also the recipient of the 2023 Casey Family Programs Excellence for Children Award, Birth Father of the Year. So I bring that out because this is partial of what qualifies me to be able to be here with you, to be able to present this and share on fatherhood engagement. The other part of me that I feel qualifies me is this, and I'm going to show this short film real quick, just to give you kind of an update of a little bit more about myself personally. So with that, I am the father of one beautiful daughter who has given me 3 beautiful grandchildren. As a matter of fact, let me show you real quickly because I love to brag about my grandkids. And so these are my 3 beautiful babies. I am very much involved, especially since Grandpa has resigned. I have more time at home. I work mostly from home virtually. So the grandchildren love to come over to Grandpa and Grandma's house. Luckily they only live about, I would say, no less than 5 minutes away from here. So did someone share something? I'm sorry. Okay, all right. So as you can see, I'm also easily squirreled. So when things happen, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. So, but with that, and of course, my 3 beautiful grandchildren, and I cannot forget my beautiful wife. We just completed 21 years of marriage in June. And so we, she's my backbone, she's my support. And as we've gone through what we've gone through together, we went through it with our heads held high and having just a support, to help us go forward. Now, I do still work with fathers in my community as a minister, as well as the Dads Assisting Dads Coalition and other parts. And so I'm also privileged of being here with you all. Now, here's the thing. I'm the type of trainer that likes to have interaction. I love to have conversations. Unfortunately, due to the amount of individuals that we have here, I think that if we were to get into a real robust conversation, we would probably spend the short amount of time that we have here doing so. But I don't want to discourage any type of conversation. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And I know that we have experts all across, the board here. And so knowing that, if you see a question in there that you're able to answer or even share resources, I encourage you to please do so. Unfortunately, I cannot cover every single question as much as I would love to. But you know what? Doesn't mean that I'm the only expert in the room. And here's the other thing. I'm also here to learn from you all, right? Because as much of an expert as I am in father engagement, I also know that I don't live in your backyard. I don't live in your counties. I don't work in your areas. I do. I am a trainer for UC Davis, Fresno State, as well as San Diego State University, CWDS. And I do train working with fathers and child welfare, as well as a curriculum that I've developed within Davis, and also parent partner programs. So I've been across the state, but that does not mean that I know every single thing that's happening with fatherhood, within that piece. So I welcome the expertise in the room as well. So that way, if there's a question that's maybe there that someone else could answer at the same time and have those conversations and even connect with resources, by all means, I encourage you to do so. So with that, we're going to go ahead and press on. And enough about myself, right? I mean, I'm not the type of individual that likes to highlight myself, right? I just wanted to bring certain things out about my personal life that I felt would benefit everyone. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to send you into your first breakout rooms. And so we're going to send you in there with groups of 4 to 5. And so when you go in there, we want you to share your name, right? Agency, role, and years that you've been there. And of course, share 1 or 2 words that summarize something important that you learned from your father or a father figure. So with that, when we talk about father figure, we're talking about stepdad, we're talking about grandpa, we're talking about uncle, we're talking about cousin, brother, we're talking about coach, we're talking about a teacher, we're talking about a pastor, a youth minister, a friend's father, right? Because we know that everyone has different experiences. Now, here's the other thing. As much as a father advocate as I am, I'm also a realist. So this also means that if you have maybe a bad experience and the word that comes out is not a positive one, it's okay. Okay, we're going to be real here today. We're going to be real about what we're talking about. And so we're going to send you off. We're going to give you 10 minutes, give you a couple of minutes each to share that with each other. And of course, making sure that, you do take care of that, write down those words. And I wish that we can go through every group and hear out. But what we're probably going to do is when we bring you back, just have you share out some of the words that you heard within your breakout rooms. So for those of you who are back, what I would ask is if you can put in the chat a word that you got from either yourself that you brought out or someone else that was in your group. You can put that in the chat. What was 1 word, 1 or 2 words that came out? Hardworking, family, funny, responsibility, caring, protect, work ethic. Nice. Strong work ethic, fair, hard work, lovable, la familia, okay? Clear, conditional love, never give up, perseverance, tu palabra, your word, okay? Work hard, respect, teacher, helping others, be humble, good humor, good work ethics. It's amazing to see how many different words come out, right? How the different perspectives and different upbringings come up. If you did not hear, if you can put in the chat, what are some words that you heard, right? From either your, something that you that resonates with you or something that you heard from someone else. You want to throw it out there in the chat so we can see. We got a lot of different, words that come out. Power of showing up and listening, protector, and as you're doing that, I can share some of mine. And so for myself, my birth dad basically became a father at the age of 15. So he was still growing up. And so he wasn't around. He was in and out of prison. So the one who stepped into my life in the beginning, as I was born in San Antonio, Texas, was my grandfather, his dad. And the word that comes to mind for him is faith. He taught me about faith. And so I moved out to sunny Southern California at the age of 8 years. where I met my other grandfather, where the word comes to mind is worth ethic, but the way that he taught us, because he came up rough, was he taught us or taught me this is what we're going to do. We go over to the truck, he'd take the tire off, take the brakes off, and he says, I hope you were paying attention because you need to put this back together. And if I drive this truck and crash and die, it's your fault. So pretty rough, right? And you could not show any type of emotion. You had to suck it up. If tears came out, then he would call you every name in the book. So that was my grandfather out here in California. But I'll tell you what, I learned fast. I learned very fast. So I'm a fast learner today. And the last one that I would put out there is my pastor. As I basically changed my life and walked down that path, he became my father figure, but also the role model to be a father, because I was a father at the age of 18. And so when I met him and became a part of the church and all that, he was teaching me what a father figure looks like, but also how to be a father when he was raising his daughter. So what he taught me was forgiveness, and that is the reason why I have a strong relationship with my biological father today. And so we read all these and we have all these different perspectives and different things that come out what we were taught. And so why do we do this? What's the whole purpose of this in the beginning? The whole purpose is, yes, to introduce each other. And I wish I could meet you all one-on-one, and maybe in the future we can do so. But the main thing is to look at what influenced us coming up, whether positive or negative. And as we look at that piece, and I do want to share this, that sometimes these topics do trigger. And I'm an individual with lived experience, right? I understand triggering, but I also understand that I'm not the only one who has lived experience, right? I navigated the child welfare system, but that does not mean that I'm the only one that has experienced trauma. We all have. And so my thing is that if at any point something happens where you're triggered when we're talking about these conversations, because they can bring up feelings, please step away, take some time for yourself. If you want to put in the chat, BRB, be right back. We will be very much understanding on that piece, because we know sometimes these can bring up memories when we're talking about dad, right? And so as I was sharing, just the other thing that we want to look at is, does our experience and how we were brought up, whether it was birth father, stepfather, a grandfather, or anyone else who played that role, whether it's positive or negative, could it influence the way that we view other dads within our practice? I'm not asking for anyone to answer. It's a simple question. Could it paint a picture of what a loving father should look like? And when we don't see it, we automatically have this perspective on the individual coming in. If we catch someone maybe coming in and raising his voice at his kids, or speak in a certain way or act in a certain way, do we automatically go to that place and say, you know what, that's not a good father, and never give him the opportunity to share who he is and why he is the way he is? Because nobody wakes up one morning and does that. It's something to think about as we're going through this, right? And so hopefully you enjoyed that piece right there. And hopefully you got to know somebody you didn't know. Hopefully we didn't get you all together and you're from the same agencies. But even then, sometimes within this, within these trainings, we do have these opportunities to see each other in a different way, and how we view and how we do things and how we practice, right? And so this is the beginning piece of what we're going to go into. And so today's learning objectives, as we go into it, is we're going to understand bias and common misconceptions. And I think this is important for us to really pay attention to, because a lot of times what happens is we go in and we run into certain snags, or we're not sure how to get things. And sometimes we don't see the bias that's there, or we do, but we call it something else. I have a right to be this way. And you have a right to be this way. And you have a right to think and feel how you do. But remember this, when we are calling ourselves a human service agency, we have to step outside of our, who we are in that piece, and give the opportunity to that father that we're engaging in whatever capacity. Remember, culture plays a part of it. Society plays a part of things. And so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this is where we're going to begin. We're going to review research supporting father involvement. We're going to look at some stats, right? Identify best practices, strength-based father engagement, and ways to help re-engage absent fathers for those who work with those who maybe want to come by and so come back and reconnect with their kids. And so right away, I know sometimes we think we'll talk about re-engagement, so we're talking about a father who just left. What about, we're also talking about those who are in the military, right? Fathers who go off, into the military, and when they come back, their child is older, and that reconnection, and if they're looking for services within our agencies, how can we be of service, right? So, and then of course, discuss right now actions and resources you can take when you return to work, things you can take back with you. So with that, you won't know how important, okay, thank you for that, Ian. So we're going to go ahead and show a video real quick. So if you can cue that up, Haley, I'd surely appreciate it.
Yo, comedian Michael Jr. here. As you know, I just flat out enjoy doing comedy. But one of the things I love way more than that is being a dad. Not too long ago, I'm going through some video footage and I run into this video of my youngest daughter being born. Now, of course, I was there. I actually took the video, but I had never really experienced it from this perspective before. Now, look, we're in the hospital room. She's sticky and she's baby and all that stuff, and she's in the middle of crying. And then I speak up. I start talking to her, and watch how she responds when she hears my voice. Okay, Portland, look, I'm right here. It's okay, it's okay. I'm right here, I'm right here. We're doing just fine. It's okay. It's okay, I'm right here. Right here, yeah, it's okay. It's okay, baby, it's okay. That was pretty awesome. So check it. A few minutes later, the nurse starts working on her, puts her pamper on her, and I'm not saying anything, and she actually starts to cry again. Then I speak up, she hears my voice, and stops crying, like again. But I want you to notice what else happens after I tell her that I love her. Hey, let your mom hold you. Portland, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm right here. I'm right here. I am right here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay.
So thoughts on the video? Put in the chat. You got some little heart figures up there, symbols coming up and all that. Can I be transparent with you? That happened to me 2 times. One with my daughter, the birth of my daughter, and also with my first granddaughter. I was privileged to be able to be in the delivery room. And one of the things that I learned was, speaking to, the kiddos when they're babies inside of their mother's womb, right? And so being able to do that, being able to be in the delivery room, having that conversation with the baby while they're being born, my daughter as well as my granddaughter, and the response was amazing. What is the purpose of this? It's really looking at how important fathers are, the impact. And I know sometimes we have those, the discussion about, when they're in utero, do dads play a big impact? They do. The thing is that sometimes what happens is that we get caught up with the different things, and we're going to talk about the myths and biases about fathers, things that have come up. And the first one is they don't want to be involved or included. They're not nurturing. I did not share this, but for the first 4 years of my daughter's life, I was a single father. Her mom stepped away after she was a couple months because we were young. I was 18, and she decided she wanted to go and do things, and so I stuck it out. And so they are not capable of caring for infants or children. For sure, I was a single father, and my daughter turned out pretty good. Services are to one parent is sufficient. They don't want to spend time with their kids. If parents are not together, the father is likely to blame. It's his fault why the parents aren't together. They are resistant to services, right? Services with whether it's within child welfare, services within agencies, mental health is another one. But we also have to remember that culture really plays a big part of this, right? And how is it that we can approach that? We'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. I'm going to try to give as much information as I can. I do have a lot of stories. I can't get to them all through the experiences, not just within myself, but with fathers that I've helped navigate throughout the years of being in child welfare, or even outside of child welfare, getting phone calls and so on. And so having been around, and I will also share that, these pictures in the background are actual pictures. I did get permission from some of the events that we've had. As a matter of fact, let me show you some real quick. That gentleman down there with the fishing pole, that is my pastor. So we go fishing together. So just wanted to throw it out there. So going back to this, if parents are not together, the fathers like to blame. They are resistant. They are not reliable or trustworthy, incapable of being like moms. Has anyone ever heard these sayings before, or have this been shared? Right. So these are just some of the things, right? I'm not saying everybody does that. I know that we have a lot of wonderful rock stars here today, right? So I'm not throwing that at you that, oh, this is what you say, what you do. These are just some of the things that have come out that we've heard from fathers, and so also statistics, and also within child welfare and other agencies as well. So Maria, you haven't heard, I've heard all? Okay. All right. I hear you. So moving on. So the definition of bias, right? Bias is noun, a prejudice or strong opinion, slanted view. To be biased, influencing others with your opinions on purpose or unintentional. And everyone is biased at some time. And I will be transparent myself as well. I'm not excluded from this. I am a father who has navigated child welfare system, and I will be one of the first ones to throw myself out there to say that I had to deal with some issues, biases in my life with other fathers who were in the child welfare system. And I'll give you real quickly an example. One of my pet peeves is sexual abuse. And so when I was a parent partner, we took on cases. And my very first case, not the very, very first one, but one of my first child abuse cases, sexual abuse cases. Let me get that straight. Sexual abuse cases, I had a hard time. And so what happened was, I was given this case, and it was a stepfather, with the oldest daughter being a stepdaughter. Bells and whistles for me. Oh my God, he did it. Oh, you know what? It's just, right? That's what came out inside of me. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I can do this. I'm supposed to support him. I'm supposed to help him navigate the system. I'm supposed to bring resources. And I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I spoke to my supervisor. I spoke to outside sources, not giving information, right? But sharing about my feelings. I spoke to the person that I truly trust the most. And so basically, after all these discussions, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take it. And so as I did, I met the gentleman. He began crying right away. And I'm just looking at him like, I'm trying to be here to support you, putting a smile on my face and inside of just wrestling. So long story short, after some counseling and therapy, the stepdaughter shared that she was sexually abused, but it was not by him. It was by birth father's stepson, who was over the age of 18 years of age. And this gentleman was accused. He was moved out of his home. He had two other younger daughters. He said he didn't care. He just wanted to go home. And so, which really gave me a big smack in the face. But I think the biggest smack that I got of all was at the end, when everything was said and done and he was able to go home and reunify. He turned to me and told me if I would have never came into his life and been the only one to support him, he don't think he would have made it, which really hit home. Who am I, a father who had navigated the child welfare system and understands those feelings, look at another father and treat him in such a way and label him? And so it was a big eye opener for me to be able to look and say, you know what, I need to check my biases. So When I speak, I don't only speak outwardly, I speak inwardly because I have these experiences, and I still do have to deal with biases that I struggle with. And we all do. As human beings, we're imperfect. And so this is why it's important to understand that sometimes we have them, sometimes we don't. I've had many individuals who shared with me through the trainings that I've had when we speak about biases, like I didn't realize, but I had one who was transparent to share, I was going through a nasty divorce. And the child custody case was just bad. And so she noticed that, and she shared, I noticed that when I was going through that, I was treating fathers a certain way. I changed the way I did things. So it's something that we need to look at very carefully, right? And so I'm not saying that we take our eyes off of safety and certain things like that. We have to keep that at the forefront in whatever capacity, whatever role we play. But it's very important that we really do check our biases and try to get to know the individual who's in front of us in whatever capacity it is. Because a lot of times what happens is we find them or we see them or we hear about them through a most traumatic moment or very vulnerable moment, and the reaction of a father that comes out isn't the same as a mother most of the time. Pacing back and forth, huffing and puffing, and we take that as aggressive, when in actuality, it could be fear. It could be, concern, especially when we have role of authority. As for fathers, a lot of times that is their way of showing that they're afraid. We've heard many times in groups where they've shared, if I could ball up on the floor in the fetal position and cry, I would do it. But how would that look? How would that look to, I've had, individuals tell me, I think this father has mental health issues because every time he's calling me, he's crying. And my response was, are you a father? And yes, he was a father. And this is where the male comes in, the man. And so I said, so if you had your child removed and you were in a traumatic moment and all you want, and you were talking to somebody who has the power to give your child back or to keep, how would your response be? Or if you had the power to bring help and you didn't understand, how would your response be? Would it be smiles and giggles and tiptoeing through the tulips? And he responded, no, it would be probably the same thing. And sometimes what happens is we fail to realize it, and it's okay because we don't understand fully. But what is not okay is that when we do see something like that, that we don't examine ourselves before we look at another father and give them the opportunity to show us who they are. So if you have any comments, please put them in the chat. I'd love to hear from you as well, or any questions. We'll go ahead and move on. And so here we are. We're going to be looking at some facts right now, short and sweet, because I want to keep you guys awake, right? I want to keep you all awake. I don't want to put you to sleep. There are some people who love facts, but there are some who don't, and it's okay. So these right here on the father facts, children with involved dads are less likely to be mistreated. And so here's the thing. We talk about involved dads. That's one of the biggest things that I share when I'm out there in the community working with fathers, is the importance of being involved. Now, I've had fathers come up and sadly ask me if I can teach them how to be a good father. And then I sit down with them and have a conversation with them and tell them and ask them, share with me, what do you do with your children? And this one specific father who was incarcerated since he was the age of 12, in and out of juvenile hall and into prison and all that. And so when I had this conversation, he was like, well, I take my son to the park, I put him on the swings, I play with him, I take him home, clean him up, I make lunch for him, and then I feed him, and then if he's sweaty, I take him a bath. And I'm looking at this gentleman like, wow, you are an awesome father. The problem is no one ever told him that. It was assumed that because of his background that he didn't know what he was doing, or that, he didn't know how to act, and he was doing it. And so another fact, involved dads improve their children's overall emotion and social well-being. And another one is infant death within the first 28 days is 4 times higher for those with absent fathers than those with involved fathers. Now, this one right here, as I've shared in the past in the different trainings that I've done, I've gotten pushback, right? And it's, what do you think, that moms can't handle it on their own? No, that's not what this is. And when I first got it, I didn't know how to answer it. So I looked it up and I kind of went and tried to get as much information. And so the way that they did this study was that they did overall. Now, this is with moms who had suffered from postpartum depression, moms who have gotten sick, right, along with the kiddos, moms who did not have support and got overwhelmed, and just different things that brought this up. And when and what was shared is when the father is there, the mom gets rest, right? The mom is able to, if she's sick, be able to, take care of herself, and he takes care of her as well as takes care of the baby, and so on and so forth. So it's not that moms are not capable of doing it, because they've been doing it for forever. And I'm a product of a single mother home. These facts come with these things that come attached to it, like postpartum depression and the sicknesses that take place. So thank you, Jody, for sharing that. And then, of course, individuals from father absent homes are 279% more likely to carry guns and deal drugs than peers living with their fathers. Now, this is not 1,000%, but these are facts, and I know this to be true because I was a statistic at one time. My mom did a wonderful job. She brought me up. She did the best she could, but there was something missing, and I went looking for it. So I was a Hispanic youth that got involved with drugs and gangs and ran around looking for that father figure. And I shared about my grandfather, and it was something still missing. And so I became that statistics and jumped out of high school, right? I finally was encouraged to go back, and I got my GED and got into college and all that, but it took time because of all this. So I know this to be true and not only that, and I did not share this, but I do, as a youth minister, have been working for the past 16 years with our local juvenile probation department, mentoring young, youth, basically, who are basically involved with the probation department, the juvenile probation department. And our message is, just because you made a mistake does not mean that you are a mistake. And our whole focus, because I came from that background, was, if I can do it, so can you. And so knowing that, not just within my own childhood, but not only being a father, but also being a mentor out in my community, seeing a lot of this take place where we've seen wonderful outcomes, but we also, unfortunately, have seen tragedy, which I take to heart and has broken my heart a couple of times, because we lost young people. And so this is why the importance of that father figure, and what goes along with this was, I was never intended to be a father figure as a youth minister, but I've had individuals come and say, you know what, you're just like, you're like my dad, right? You're there for me, and you do this, and that wasn't my intentions, but the father figure is still there. And so the impact of that, we've seen that. So this right here is very important as we look at the facts, and you can find them in the National Father Initiative, which I'll give the resource later on. That is very huge, is nationally known, and there's a lot of wonderful resources which we'll mention later on. So, there it is. It's already put in. Thank you so much. Haley's on it. I love it. So, any questions or comments on this real quick? I know I might be speaking a little fast. How do we support fathers who are coming out of incarceration? So that is a very, very good question. So being able to be there and sharing as much information as you can on their, the importance of being there with your kiddos is one way. We'll talk about some other things as well, because if they've been away for some time, we just don't want to slap them in there and scare the kids off and out. So we got something for that. It's not a checkoff list, just some things that we'll be talking about. So, all right. And so I bring this in, why men matter both now and forever, faith-based community. So speaking to the faith-based community as well. So we are inclusive of this because we want to be able to connect dads back into society, back into their communities. And there has been some fathers who have come out of the faith community and somehow, some way fell away, and I've come across him. As I said, I'm a minister, but I never go in and force my faith on anyone. I share my story, and I share the things of not just being a minister, but of the support that I received, because that is my story. When I went through my situation, and I went through many situations, right, with navigating child support, navigating child welfare system, the one support that was there for me when everyone seemed to turn away was my church, my pastors, and my church family. The support that was given, is something that I saw to be helpful to get me through. And this is something that we want to basically just remind us, if it is, if it is something that the Father is willing to. Now, we also talk about cultures, and a lot of cultures, they have a religious background. And so, not that we're forcing anyone to take on religion or faith or spirituality, but the fact of offering that option, especially when a father's struggling with something and their family, being able to introduce them back into that, to kind of give them the idea and the option. And I really am big on options. And that's for everything. When we're coming into helping families, we want to make sure that we're giving options and not telling them, oh, well, this is what you need to do. Because I can tell you right now, with a lot of different cultures, when you do that, or when we do that, should I say, then what we're doing is we're ripping the culture apart. We're not being culturally sensitive. See, the thing that I've practiced and seen that works, and others as well, is when we go in and we meet a family, just because I'm a Hispanic father that has navigated child welfare system does not mean that I can go into another Hispanic father's home who is now navigating the child welfare system and tell them, I succeeded, this is how I do it, and this is what you need to do. That's not how it works. It's going in there and hearing the family, right? And listening to the father and saying, okay, tell me about your family, tell me about yourself, how do things work? And then from there, offering options instead of telling them this is what needs to change. And I'll give you an example. One of my cultures, one of the things that was brought up was my grandfathers were, I call them old school. And so specifically the one here in California who has passed away some years back, right? But one of the things that I learned from him in the beginning when I first started coming around him was, and forgive me, this is the way that it seemed. I go out, I work, come home, drop my pants, and my wife picks them up. My wife is at home and I'm outside. And so when I saw that, it was part of my culture. Okay, so this is how it goes. So when I met my pastor, his mentality was different. His mentality was, my wife is my rib. She's not my foot, so I can step on her, and she's not above me. We're side by side. And so he had shared how he did laundry and how he did dishes and he changed diapers. My grandfather didn't do none of that. And so as he showed me that and shared with me that, he didn't say, this is what you need to do. He says, this is what I do, and this is why I do it. He explained it. And when he explained it to me, it made sense. And I thought to myself, I don't want my wife overwhelmed. I don't want my wife to ever feel like she's below me. And so what it did was it gave me an option, and I chose. And today I do laundry because I'm more at home. If I see dishes, I'll do dishes. I'll do everything. The only thing I don't touch is the cooking piece, because my wife complains about my cooking. So I can barbecue, right? But the cooking, we've agreed she's good on that. Now, I don't mean that I won't try from time to time, or if she's overwhelmed because she goes into the office and comes back, I'll make sure we get something he will buy out. That way she's not being overwhelmed. And so, but I notice is that I'm passing that on to my grandson, who's the baby of my grandchildren, that we share these roles. And so this is an example of what I'm saying is that in any role, any way, anytime we're trying to get a message across, we first listen to, the family, the father, and hear how the dynamics function in the home. And then what we do is we offer options along with explanations. But until we've heard them out, we're not going to get anything back, because I've come across individuals who are just like, and I've had to do the same thing as well, go in there and humble myself and allow that father, that man of the home, to share with me how things function, and then go from there and then offer options along with explanations in order to be able to build that rapport. But I also have to be a man of my word, that I'm not forcing anything. And so that's just an example, just an idea. And so this is also why I include this piece, the faith-based piece, right, as an option. And if they say, you know what, no, I'm not a person of faith and all, then we step away from it. We leave it alone if it's within our role, right? So this is just something that I felt needed to be brought out in that way, because our connection to them is connecting them back to society, connecting them back to their community. And sometimes it just takes someone to remind them, hey, was there any time that you were maybe a part of a church that may have some things that you are more comfortable with? And then let it go from there. Supporting fathers who come and go back to prison. Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for responding to that. So now we're going to go into the importance of fathers, children with involved, loving fathers. And so I do want to mention this. When we talk about involved, we know what involved means, that they're doing what they can. They're involved. They're there. They're present. Now, remember this, involvement looks a lot different at times from mother involvement. Now, so does the same thing as a loving father. I shared with you about my grandfather who was teaching me about work ethics. He was doing the best he can, and that was his way of showing love. And so this is another thing that we also keep in mind is that what does a loving father look like to us? And is it going to be the same as a father showing love to his child? They're going to look different at times. They're not always going to look the same way that we see things. And so keep that in mind. So more likely to do well in school, have healthy self-esteem, exhibit empathy and pro-social behavior, avoid high-risk behaviors such as drug use, truancy, and delinquent activity. And also research shows that fathers are as important as mothers in their children's outcomes. So this is research that comes out. And so this is why it's important that we pay attention to the research, because it gives us that understanding of the importance when a father is involved, right? And of course, the loving piece also, we have to be very careful that we're not telling a dad, you don't love your child because all you do is work. And then, you just come home and, you give them, you pay for their bills and stuff like that. But to them, that might be loving. They can share. And there have been some to say, hey, I'm doing a lot more than my father did to me. So being open to that, and once again, offering options. There's nothing wrong with that. And with the explanation. Whoopsie. So when fathers are involved in child welfare services, because I know we have some individuals from child welfare, right? Children spend fewer days in foster care. They're more likely to be reunified with parents. Protect against future maltreatment, additional perspectives, placement options, social and financial resources, paternal family history and traditions, positive systemic effects beyond the individual family. So understanding this, whether we're part of child welfare or we're an agency that service fathers who are going through child welfare, it's important for us to understand these statistics that have come out, that the impact when we're able to keep a father engaged. Now, that one's another one, right? How do we keep them engaged? We're going to be talking about a little bit more on these things as well. So I've heard from fathers that children in court make statements such as, you are not invested in getting your child back because you do not spend time with the child due to work. Absolutely, which is another one. It's like, I'm not even gonna get into that because we can go and go and go and go. So, but you're absolutely right. I've heard the same thing. I've seen the same thing, right? And we're doing our best to try to address as much as we can on just every avenue. So thank you for that. Father involved, important for both mothers and fathers. Now there is that piece that really plays a role for both mom and dad when a father is involved. Now this isn't just father living in the home. This is also co-parenting in however way that looks. And so encouragement, motivate, esteem, emotional support, self-care, helps reduce stress, better overall health, and access to more resources. So really thinking about this, when two parents are able to communicate, to encourage one another, it builds each other up. The emotional support takes place either with the building of the self-esteem or the ability for both parents to take a break. If a father is involved and he's taking his kiddos, whether he lives there or not, it gives mom the opportunity to be able to get that emotional support to take care of herself, right? Which goes to self-care. And of course, to help to reduce the stress, because it can be overwhelming with kids, right? I mean, it happens. As much as we love our children, we know that they're children. They're gonna be a certain way, they're gonna act, and there's no actual manual to raise kiddos. And so it can become stressful at times. And so when a father is involved, when they're both involved and doing their part, it does relieve the stress for each other. And this is why it's important. Better overall health, because we know that when you have high stress and you have a lot of emotion going on, it tends to lead to sicknesses, and we know that that's medically true. And of course, access to more resources. And so what we're going to do real quick is we're going to put you all into breakout rooms again, right? And so we're going to send you in, and we want you to answer these 2 questions. And so the questions are: can you share a time when dad was involved and the family benefited? Can you share a time? And the second question is, can you share a time when dad was not involved and the family was impacted? Well, time has flew. I don't know about you, but it has flew for me. So hopefully it has for you, because then if it's like dragging, then I'm boring the living daylights out of you. I don't want to do that. So hopefully you're getting something out of this, as hoping you are. And wonderful action in the chat as well. So welcome back. I believe that's everyone now. I believe so. So real quickly, what I would like to do is maybe 1 or 2 of you, if you'd like to share out real quick what you got out of that, out of your discussion in the group that you were in. So anyone, do I have anyone who would like to share? We'll take 1 or 2 of you, take a couple minutes real quickly. I'm just curious to hear that conversation. Jessica.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, Melissa, thank you. I like that time to reflect on like everything. But no, it just having that conversation about what it looks like and personal experiences and families we work with just puts a lot into perspective of how important fathers are to not just the relationship as a family dynamic, but each individual person within that family. Our kids are all different. Not one child is the same, experience the same, feel the same. So the, involvement of a father for each child is impactful and important, because it really, shows us who we become as adults. And it's nice to, again, like as Melissa said, to reflect on who we've become because of that involvement. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful input. Looks like we got some good experiences in our groups. And so I appreciate you all for sharing. And so with that, the father involvement, when we talked about this, it's both to kiddos, but also to the parents themselves. And we know sometimes it doesn't work out. We understand sometimes that parents, their relationship, it just isn't working. Which brings us to our next slides. Fathers accused of intimate partner violence, right? And so as we look at this slide, is it just the relationship between mom and dad toxic, and dad loves the kids as much as mom? Are there resources to help dad, specifically for dad, not under assumption one size fits all? And so we look at safety threat versus safety concern. We look at helping support fathers and having a network for safety, using these supports for initial monitoring, right? And also understanding the particulars of how and when intimate partner violence occurs, and the safety planning around those issues: the substance abuse issue, mental health, job stress, housing instability. I heard and I'll share this real quickly. It was an amazing story. I'm a father advocate, but I'm also really huge on child safety. And so I was in a training, and we were talking about just that whole piece about this. When a father is accused of the intimate partner violence, And so there was a brave young lady who gave me permission to share her story. And it was just amazing. She was a victim of brutal domestic violence, intimate partner violence. She was trying to get out and she was hospitalized. The last time it was finally overwhelming to where he hospitalized her. It was bad. And so finally she got the help she needed, went to court. Everybody there was in agreement that a restraining order was needed to be put in for her and her kiddos against, from dad. And so she asked to speak. And so they, of course, permitted her to. She got up and she said, thank you for everything. Thank you for, this restraining order and all that, the support and everything. And she went on to say, but I do have a request. And the request was that you take the restraining order off of dad for the kids. And so everybody was kind of shocked in the courtroom. And they said, are you sure? She said, yes. She said, yeah, our relationship is toxic and I do need that protection, but he is a wonderful father. And so the court, they talked, the lawyers talked and everything. And they said, if you're sure about this, and they went. She said that today her kids are flourishing because they have a relationship with a wonderful father. He was a lousy boyfriend, toxic, but a father. He was just, it was amazing. And so when I heard that, yes, I have been an advocate for fathers, even in, IPV, but I also have been very concerned about safety, right? Because we know violence can extend and this isn't for all the cases, but it's important to look into and have these conversations because just like right here, what I mentioned is that toxic relationship between mom and dad, also between father and his kids, or is it that we can rob the kiddos from having their father without that toxic relationship between mom and dad? And also to remember in the bottom that dads can be victims as well. They can be victims. They're just not going to share as much. There has been some that come out, but they're not as much because it's embarrassing. Society says, you're a man, suck it up. So just wanted to share that piece here and with that story. And once again, we do want to make sure that the safety of the kiddos is first and foremost. So if you are offering resources and with this pop up, have that conversation. It's okay to have those conversations to really look into to see if it's possible to continue that relationship between the kiddos and their father, or is it something that we really need to pay attention to? Because there are those cases as well. All right, thank you, Juanita, for that. She did put boundaries. So, all right. So with that, the dilemma. So here are some dilemmas that we're going to share. And so if I allow the children to be around a parent with a violent history and they are hurt, will I be accused of not adequately protecting the children? If I don't engage the father, am I depriving the child of the resources that would enrich their lives and hasten their departure from the CPS system? Are there enough resources in the department and or out in the community for dad? And this is where community-based and faith-based organizations can help by providing information about resources that might not be known. So we're going to use the annotation at this time. And what we want you to do, and if I can get some help as well with that piece, is that we want you to put a stamp next to one of the dilemmas that you may come across, something that relates to you. So
as a reminder to use that stamp tool, you're going to go to your toolbar, which for most of you is going to be at the top of your screen. It's going to say View Options as a drop-down menu. You're going to choose Annotate in that list, click on it, and then you'll have an option to use a stamp. Doesn't matter which stamp you use, the star or the heart, put your own personality on it, and choose the dilemma that you most relate to in this list.
all right, so we have a lot with the third one. Are there enough resources in the department or in the community for that?
Wow, it's fun to see these come in.
Well, yeah.
I agree with you, Roger. Number 3 seems to be a a big one.
Nice. All right. And I think, let's see, the fourth one would be the runner-up.
It looks like that's getting a lot of stamps. So I think people are definitely in agreement with you that we need to look at CBOs and faith-based organizations as an option.
Nice. All right, they're still coming in. All right. All right, so shall we move on? You see all these wonderful markings in there. And I will share out as well, if you know of any organizations that have different father-based resources, please put them in the chat as well. And the location where you're at. I think it's important also to be able to put that out there just in case, because sometimes we can be in the same area and not know what we have in our backyards. I've come across many times where it's like, we don't have anything for dads. And then another individual who's from the same area says, yes, we do. And here it is. And that, I think, is a very, very good connection. So that way we can begin to develop those resources, to be able to be father friendly. Right. And so just wanted to give that opportunity as well. If you wanted to, if you have something or some type of resources for fathers, if you can put that in the chat as well as the area it is, so that way others can see it. And this is a part of our collaboration here. So we're going to go ahead and move on for the sake of time here. And we're going to move into the best practice for father engagement. So we're going to talk a little bit about father engagement here, right? And so some of the things that have come up in ways that we engage fathers, and this is across the board. And so for the first one we have here is attitude over skill. Why do you think attitude over skill is important? You want to put that in the chat as we're talking. You think about one of the things that I always bring out is going into a restaurant, right? And you have a waiter or waitress that's right there. And as you go and approach the waiter or the waitress to be seated, they roll their eyes at you, or they make a face, and just like, and so right away you kind of get like, whoa, am I not wanted here? And so they begin to walk you over to a table, and they're going to sit you down there, and you look at the table and it's dirty, and you start, hey, you know what, this table's dirty. And they start getting, very offensive, like, well, this is not good enough for you? Well, go find your own seat, right? And so when that takes place, you're really starting to think, should I still be here? If not walking out already. And then they sit you down, you ask you what you want to drink, and your response is, I don't know yet, I'm still looking. Okay, I'll be back when I'm ready to come back. And so they walk away. Are you going to care about how they set the plate, how they set the napkins, the fork, the spoon, the cup on the right side, how they walk around with a big tray and the different plates on there, and how they can balance that and not bump into each other and all the skills of that? Would you be concentrating on the skills, or would you be looking at the attitude and saying, I'm never coming back to this place? I don't know about you, but I would be like, you know what? Here's my tip to you. Find another job. This is not for you. This is sometimes how, when a father approaches, the response that comes. I can share my story, of when I came into, the child welfare system, about how I was treated in the very beginning. Not that I'm here out of revenge. I'm not here to get back anybody or throw dirt at anyone else, right? It's not about that. It's the simple fact of why I chose to go and come back into the system to be able to help to avoid things like that, to bring, my experience, not to hurt or to take the eyes off the importance of the child's safety, but in order to help others. So that way, when we are making decisions, we're not doing it out of bias, or we're not doing it out of our own feelings and emotions, but on the way that we practice, because attitude over skill is important. Recognize and acknowledge possible disparities with father in our systems, right? Understanding that there are no two fathers that are the same. It was mentioned no two kiddos are the same, absolutely, but also no two fathers are the same. Embrace father as a viable placement option. If that's a part of your job, your role is being able to do that, is making sure that we keep that in mind. Help father focus on their strengths. A lot of times dads don't know they have strengths, especially when we're dealing with agencies, right? When they're coming into the attention of whatever, child welfare, mental health, they may not be in the greatest places. They may have to, be putting up with society, putting up with culture, putting up with all kinds of different things and being told things. And so letting them know, hey, you know what, you showed up. That's powerful. Giving them that back, so that way they can see, hey, you know what, there's somebody who really cares about me. Because a lot of times, believe it or not, I hear it all the time. You're the first one to apologize to me, even though I didn't do anything to them. And you're the first one that didn't hang up on me or walk out on me. And that's sad to hear. Help dad take advantage of support services. Now, I'll be honest with you, and for those men and fathers in the room, when we're asked, how are you doing? Good. I'm good. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're good. It just means that we're just going to throw that out there because we're taught you suck it up and you go forward, and you don't show people your weaknesses. That's considered a weakness at times. And so being able to encourage them, hey, this is what it is, an education, right? Talk to them, offer options, don't force, but offer those options. Provide knowledgeable and approachable initial male contact when possible or based on family need is also important. It's also important having, if possible, a father speak to another father, right? A lot of times that's helpful. There are some things now, I'm not one that's gender biased where, a mom or a woman cannot work with a father. I've had coworkers, as a parent partner, I was the only male Spanish speaking parent partner for all of Riverside County Children's Services. So I was the only one throughout the whole 8 years that I was there. And now they don't have the male Spanish speaking parent partner for Riverside County. So, but I saw amazing work come from my colleagues who were moms working with fathers. I saw amazing social workers who are, predominantly female working with dads and come out with amazing results. But there are those times when a father needs to talk to a father, just like a mother needs to talk to a mother. So that's what that means. And help to educate all on fatherhood data all around within our agencies and all, but also dads, let them know how important they are. Show them some of the data, some of the things that show why it's important for them to be involved in their kiddos' lives, or the options and the education. This is a part of that. Why is it important to be involved here, and different things like that. So. Okay. So what about dads that have not been involved, right? We're going to talk about that. And as I shared with you, there are incarcerated fathers as well, but there's also military dads who will go and serve our country, who are away for times as they're doing their tours. And then they come back and their kiddos were small, and now they're older. I can share an experience. I wasn't a military father, but I had a circumstance where I moved from here back to Texas when my baby was small with her mom before we separated, and I became a single father. And so when she came back, she was supposed to go back, but she got comfortable here. So I was without my daughter for about 2 months, which was like horrible. Not to mention the time that, I didn't have her with the child welfare system circumstance, but this one was horrible. And so when I seen her, she was a baby. She was still, she still had a little bit of hair and all that. And the next time I seen her, she was walking. And I think the hardest part for me was when I went to reach out to grab my baby girl. She didn't know who I was. That broke my heart. And so a lot of times the guilt, right? And it wasn't bad intentions. I was working out there. We were trying to make another life, and just all these things took place. So it's not always simply because they want, a father wants to. Sometimes circumstances take place where there's a decision made by the other parent. And so this right here is reconnecting the foundation. Reconnecting the foundation is to address the bias, right? Making sure that we're not making assumptions when we're with a father who's trying to reconnect with their child, because that can step in the way. Well, you weren't there for, why, all these things can actually interfere and make this father say, you know what, maybe I don't deserve this. And so the one who gets impacted, not just the dad, but also the child, as well as the mom, as we shared when a father's involved, right? So listen to the child, mom, relatives, especially dad, about why there has been no contact. There may be anger, fear, and sadness about the situation once it has been heard and acknowledged it. Next is educate, explaining how the loss of a father robs a child of the benefits. It will make it harder for them to become a positive role model, right? So it's educating him. Demonstrate by talking about activities other fathers are involved in, pointing out the activities a father can do or are offered through your agency. Engage means to make meaningful contact and connection with fathers. Genuine engagement. Genuine is basically being real, being connected, being present, right? Because we know as human beings, when somebody's paying attention, when they're not, when they're just going through the motion, you can feel it. So these are ways to begin this. Now, I do have a handout, and I believe that it was given to you, and it's on the helping dad to reconnect. Now, what I do want to make sure that we understand is, even though it's numbered 1 through 10, it is not a checkoff list. If anything, I'm a firm believer that when we're dealing with human beings, there should never be a checkoff list. Because if we're checking the boxes, then all we're doing is going through certain things. And if they don't fit in this box, then guess what? They're excluded, and that's not fair. A human being is not a refrigerator part, right? They're not programmed in that way. Now, there are structures and different ways to approach it, and this is exactly what it is on helping to reconnect that. These are things that we can look at to help the reconnection piece. And so if you have your handout, it's called Helping Dad to Reconnect. You don't have to go, well, let me do number 1, let me do number 2. No, this is looking at the list and checking out which ones are, for this certain father that can be given ideas. And I'm going to go through this real quickly. So that way you get a fullness of not just what's on the screen, but the actual worksheet. And so stability, before dad can be serious influence in a child's life, he needs to be stable. Linking dad to resources, support, education, etc., is necessary for a father who has been absent to be considered a solid option for a child. It is if dad is not stable, that does not mean there isn't a way to start relationship building. It's a process. Second is communication. Communicate the intention. Communicate the intention with the child's mother. Another parent can influence how successful coming back into a child's life can be. Use the CFT, which is child and family team meetings, if you're not familiar with that process, to assist. If mom has a parent partner, meet up to discuss strategies. Parent partner, family advocate, peer support specialist. There are different names, but these are advocates that work along with the parents. So, and then of course, I'm not going to read every single one. Meet in a safe environment. Meet in a safe environment. Sometimes dad can be coming from a stranger position. You need to meet in a safe place. Maybe a relative home or a park with an adult the child trusts. The idea is to make the child feel safe. I'm going to jump down to number 7. Get on a child's level. Literally, dads can be big and intimidating. Get down to the child's level. Use words they understand. Respect them, and just be there to learn what they are like. This too may require guidance. This is where it can be explained the importance of parenting class. And the two important ones that I find important, and you may have a different opinion, that's fine, and is 9 and 10. Be consistent and predictable. Help dad develop a routine and share the importance of maintaining his consistency. If he cannot make it, remind him to give notice and apologize. Sometimes fathers need to be reminded that apologies are vital to building relationships and admitting when you're wrong with their child or their children, but not to make a habit of it. And then, of course, keeping promises, right? One of the most important lessons is keep your promise. Do not make promises you can keep. And if something happens, find a way to make it up after apologizing. So these are some of the things that are on the list, some of the criteria that we can help with dads when we're reconnecting and kind of giving guidance to. And once again, it's not a checkoff list, do 1, 2, no. It's meeting that father where he's at and going through certain one of these and allowing them to pull out certain things or to educate them on the reasoning why, right? Not going in there and disrupting things or, where it can go and turn for the worse. And so I recommend this worksheet just to take it and to be able to help fathers, if that's your role and that's what you're doing, or a father comes and says they want to reconnect, to be able to give you this, be able to give them this and go over certain ones of these that really resonate with you on the importance and sharing with them and giving them options. And remember this, options are very important. And of course, the option has to come with education, educating them why they need to apply certain things and then give them the decision behind that as well. So help encourage praise to their children, even if it's a simple act. Exactly. And that's learn your child's love language. That's another one right there. There's an actual, if you're familiar with the love languages, there's also one for kiddos. So believe it or not, there's some for the kids so that they can learn what the love language is. And so hopefully this is helpful. I was hoping to go through it a little bit more, but I think, with this, for the sake of time, being able to give you that, so that way you can take the list with you, look it over and see if maybe there's a father that maybe is going through things. And so being able to accommodate them to the best of your ability with certain one of these, or maybe even all of them. So, but remember, it's not a checkoff list. So, all right. Be a good listener. Absolutely. All right. Yes. Thank you, Dana. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this right here, if you're familiar with SOP, which is, oh my God, I just went blank with the acronym. Oh my goodness. It's a practice that I know in the state of California, they have rolled out through child welfare. So this right here is a tool that can be used to identify paternal support networks. And so it's a way of being able to identify, when say, for instance, you come across parents or a father and you ask them, what's your support look like? I don't have any support. So this right here, I can, share with you real quickly. Of course, number one is in the center, and that's the either the name or the photo, the drawing of the family, whatever they prefer in the middle. Who are the people who support you the most? Who do the children feel most connected with? The third one is who are the people who support you a little? And the fourth one is who are the people who you don't ask for support from, but maybe could in the future? Who are the people who don't support you and maybe make things harder for you? And so basically you can also move, say, for instance, someone's in the middle and they realize it, they can move them to the exterior and so on. And this is how you're able to help them out with finding support for them. Real quickly, I did this with a father that I was working with, a young father, lived in Arizona. COVID helped us to be able to go virtual. So as I was supporting him, his case was out in Riverside. And so we sat down, went through this, came up with an uncle. Well, actually what happened was he moved from Arizona to Riverside to be able to get closer to his daughter, who we barely knew, and he wanted to really have that connection. So he came over with a plan. He had a job, he had a sister to stay with. And so he had the case there, moved over, got into it with brother-in-law, didn't have a place to live anymore. Job was lined up, went, they didn't need him anymore. And then on top of that, his truck broke down. So he's living in his truck. So talk about some bad issues, right? So he finally told me about it. We were talking, we were going over this, came up with an uncle who was a mentor at one time in his life. He felt he made too many mistakes, that he didn't want nothing to do with him. When I asked him, well, maybe if we have a conversation, he said, nope, not, so I left it alone. he decided on his own to call and reach out to talk to his uncle, explain what happened. His uncle was like, why didn't you tell me anything? So come to find out, his uncle was a therapist. He had his own home. And he was his mentor. And he said, I don't care about what the past, what your decisions were. We're family. Took him in, gave him a place to live, gave him a job, mentored him again, fixed up his truck. And today this gentleman is serving our country. So you talk about turnarounds, and from someone that he least expected, this came out of the tool. And so just to kind of give you a background with that as well. And so this is also something that I put in your handouts, so you can take it with you. You can either make copies of it, you can draw it on a board, be creative, with father and maternal side, and have a wonderful time on developing those supports and let them see it for themselves. So, okay, so with that, right now actions, right? So what can we do right now? What are some of the things that we can do, after going through, everything that we've gone through today? Identify and assess current father involvement on your teams and explore contact with fathers. How father friendly is your agency? I wish that we, had the questionnaire in one of my other trainings, but we cannot take that because it does not belong to us. So, but there's when we talk about how father friendly is our agency, what does it look like in the lobbies that we have? And I'll give you an example. I did an interview for child support because of my navigation in the past and my work with them today, which is ironic because I was told never to go back to the child support office after I was done with them. So I went, sat down, shared my experience on how I went into the lobby of a child support office in one county, and when it transferred over to another county, the lobbies looked the same. There was pictures on the wall of fathers, and it was child support's most wanted. And underneath them was the price that they owed, right? Which is like, you're going in there, you're like, I don't want to be that father. I don't want to be here. And it was just like the whole lobby was just, oh my God. And so that was years ago. Now today they remodeled everything. They took those pictures off the wall. They've changed the posters. They've even they've trained from their security guard all the way in to be inclusive of both mom and dad and family, to greet, something as simple as greeting. And so with that, that's an example of something that had transpired from the past to now and how they're doing, not to mention the many different resources they have now for child support that they're reaching out, releasing driver's licenses and doing that, coming out into the community. So that's an idea. That's kind of an idea of father friendliness. Magazines on the table, right in the lobby, that have to do with like maybe Sports Illustrated or something that has to do with dads or the family that's inclusive. Pictures on the wall where it's mom and dad and the kiddos, right? Something as simple as that, to all the way to, how we treat, both mom and dad when they come in, that it's not something that's separate, that it's ideally equal accordingly to what is needed. Talk with your youth regarding potential male family members who can serve as a role model, as role models. If no father is present, uncle, grandfather, cousin, etc. For those of you who work with the whole family, what does that look like if dad is not around? And we know sometimes, dad has passed away, or dad's incarcerated, or can't be found at times. Who is it that can be brought in for that youth to be able to have that father figure, someone that they looked up to? Supporting mothers and being open to fathers' involvement in visits, activities, and CFT meetings. Now, we know that sometimes there are those restraining orders that keep them separate, and we got to respect those. But is there anything else that can be done? And also the communication. And of course, recognize and put aside any biases you may have in working with non-custodial inactive fathers. So we started to include more photos of dads playing with the kids, and had a male working with us for a couple of months, and that increased father engagement tremendously. Thank you, Cynthia, for that. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. All right, anyone else want to share anything? No? Hopefully I'm doing good. I'm not losing you. We good? All right. Hopefully. All right. Hopefully it resonates. And so with that, I think we're going to go into our next piece, which I think we have time for, I believe. And if you're ready, yeah. All right, Dana, thank you. So I was gonna cut it out, right? You heard enough about me, and hopefully nobody has nightmares of my voice because it's going and going and going. So, but I guess we can show this. I'll stop sharing mine and turn it over to Haley. In a moment's time, my life got flipped upside down. I seen my wife being put in the back of a squad car, seeing my kids being put in different county cars and being hauled off at a time I did not understand what was going on. Well, I shared about my piece where a day is like 1,000 years, not to know where your child is at. And it's like every second, it's like a lifetime, every moment, and thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get this call, I'm going to get this communication. It never comes. Our job in child welfare is to help families get stronger, grow stronger, and stand stronger, not destroy them. So my job title is parent partner for Children's Services right here in Riverside County. I help other parents navigate the child welfare system. Myself navigate the child welfare system, so I have that lived experience. I get to help other parents understand, the system and how it functions. The lived experience is huge. It does work because it does help that parent understand I'm not alone, but it's only one component of many. The number one component is to give that parent the empowerment to know that they are somebody and that their words mean something. My role also is to help social workers to understand the perspective of a parent, to remind them the human side. It's like a dance that I do. And it's like what we joke about a lot, that we're bilingual. We speak parent and we speak social worker. I am so passionate about this work because I was an individual who experienced what wasn't there for me. Who wasn't there for me? You can build all kinds of wonderful ways and bring all kinds of techniques in, but if there's no true communication, there's no true empathy, there's no feeling behind what you do and understanding that we're dealing with human beings, then it tends to fall apart. It tends to be more like a job, like you're building refrigerator parts, and we're not doing that. It's lives. It's families' lives that are at stake. What I love about the work that I do is that I get to bring that hope. I get to fill in the gaps, specifically for dads, what they can look forward to and how to go about things. Just remembering my experience of not knowing, being in the dark, and just, not understanding how the system functions, not knowing what my rights were, feeling like I was a failure, feeling like I was hopeless, feeling like I have no power, and feeling just deflated. Knowing now the things that I know, I get to come now and bring that hope to fulfill what it is that they need to fulfill in order to reunify and to have their case closed out. In order to protect the kiddos, we have to be able to develop, resources to be able to help mom, but we also have to develop resources for dad and making sure that he's getting what he needs. And so that's when it began to develop the Father Coalition. This is why, for me, it became a passion, because I realized that I wasn't alone. The whole thing behind that is simply being able to be inclusive, and also to remind the engagement piece that's important as we do it with mom, that we should also do it with dad. I believe in the golden rule, and that is do unto others as you would have them do to you. My golden rule is do unto others what I would have liked to have done to me. And so being able to bring that perspective and helping others, whether it's our community agencies, our government agencies, our faith-based organizations, and to give them that challenge to be able to take that on and say, what can I do to help this family? If you can help mom and you can help dad and you can help the kiddo, you just help the whole family. What I didn't have, I get to give now, which for me is huge, because all of that sums up hope. So, there you have it. Some resources for you on some national fatherhood resources which give free information. I know the national Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse is a national resource to support strong fatherhood and families. They actually have information on there. And I believe this is the one that provides opportunities for ways to develop, whether it's father-friendly resources or ways to engage dad, even support groups, how to develop those, how to develop fatherhood coalitions, and everything is free on the website. So they don't charge. They've intentionally did it. They have the statistics on there and they try to update them as much as they can. National Father Initiative is another one as well that has programs and resources. They have training. I believe it's 24/7 dads that they offer the training on. And so you can go in there if you're looking to try to start something or how to start something or communicate, or even I apologize, I forget which one, but they actually have a locator where you can go in there and punch in where you are, and they will find fatherhood coalitions around you, support groups and stuff like that. They'll point those things out for resources and so on. So with that, I thank you all for being such a wonderful, wonderful audience today. A lot of wonderful chat in the chat, right? Information going back and forth. And so with that, let's see, I don't want to miss anyone else. Questions and of course my contact information. So thank you all.